The lesson for chapter 1 section 2 or section 1 titled Solving Simple Equations, day number 2. So our first problem here, number 19, a little out of order I see because it goes 19, 20, 17, but number 19, we are solving an equation using opposite operations. It's just a one-step equation, and what's going on here is multiplication. This is called a coefficient. It's being multiplied by a variable. And when we see that the number's right next to the variable, we treat that as multiplication. So I need to divide by negative 8/10 on both sides of the equal sign. So whenever I divide by a negative, or divide by a negative into a positive, it's going to be a negative. But then also when I divide by a decimal, I'm going to move that decimal and the dividend over one space. The same thing with the divisor. So the divisor goes over one space, the dividend goes over one space as well. So if you don't see the decimal point, it's always after the number, and so I have to add that 0. So now the decimal point's right over on the right side of the 0. So I bring that decimal point straight up and then do the division. 8 goes into 40 5 times, so there's our answer. So negative 5 is the solution. And so we can check out our answer, see if it makes sense. And so what we do is we just do 4 equals, and then I substitute negative 8/10 times by negative 5. So two negatives make a positive. 5 times 8 makes 40, and then I move the decimal back one space to make 4 as the number, so it checks out. So on this one, this is division, and so we're going to undo this division by doing an opposite operation. I'm going to multiply by negative 8. Negative to cancel out the negative sign, and 8 to cancel out the 8, the dividing by 8. And so I multiply, and I end up with negative 48 equals W. So I can check the answer real quick. So I'm substituting my answer, negative 48, in for W, and I do that division. And so when I do the division, so this is the opposite of, the two negatives cancel out. 48 over 8 is 6. 6 does equal 6. So here it says your friend's final bowling score is 105. Your final bowling score is 14 pins less than your friend's score. And so we're supposed to write an equation to represent that. So we want to write an equation to find your score. So let's call maybe y equals your score. And so it says that the friend, so let me fix this real quick. So it says that the friend ends up having a 105, and your score is 14 points less than your friend. And so we're going to start off with your friend's score, 105. And your score is 14 pins less than that, or 14 pins less than that 105. And so if I wanted to do this a couple of different ways, I could. First of all, I could take the 105 and I could subtract. So let me go ahead and erase that one. I could subtract your score, y, and that will equal 14 pins, because your score is 14 less than. So that's one way of setting up the equation. Another way to set it up would be this. We could take your score and add 14 points, since your score is 14 points less than the friend's score, and that would end up equaling 105. And so either of these equations will give us the answer. I'm going to use this one here. So here I got to subtract 14 from all sides. And so once I do that, I'm left with y equals, and then I do that subtraction, end up with a 1 and a 9. So 91 pins was your score. Now if I was to do the other equation, I would do the same sort of thing. See, I subtract 105. Now when I take 105 from 14, 105 is bigger, so it ends up giving me a negative 91. But that's okay, because I still have this negative y. So if I multiply or divide by a negative, that will cancel out the negative sign in front of y, leaving me with the same score, 91 pins. Let's take a look at our next problem here. So it says ants. Some ant species can carry 50 times their weight, their body weight. It takes 32 ants to carry the cherry. Here this the cherry. It tells us the weight of the cherry right here, and about how much does each ant weigh. And so it says that an ant can carry 50 times its body weight. So let's call W its weight. So this is W equals the weight of an ant. So 50W, and it takes 32 of these ants to carry this one cherry. So times by 32 equals the weight of the cherries, so 4,800. And so from this point, we could go ahead and do some division, or actually we'll go ahead and multiply first. When I multiply these, I'm just doing 5 times 32 and then adding the 0. So I'll add the 0 right now. 5 times 2 is 10. And then 5 times 3 is 15, plus 1 makes 16. So 1600W equals 4800. And so when I go ahead and divide by that 1600, one of the rules of math and division with zeros at the end of the numbers, you can cancel them out. So that's like dividing 100 by each of these equations. And I'm left with 16 into 48. Now, 16 does go into 48 3 times, so that means that each ant weighs 3 milligrams. Milligrams because that was the weight that we were dealing with in the cherry in this case. So it says the volume of a prism is 1,122 cubic inches. We're supposed to use this formula here to find the height of the prism. So here it gives us the base right here. So this is the area of the base. We're going to substitute that in for B right here, and we know that the volume is right here, 1,122, and so we're going to substitute that in for V. So we've got 1,122 equals 93 and 5/10 times by the height. And so we're going to go ahead and do some division here. 93 and 5/10, divide that on both sides. So using the calculator, I'm just going to plug in the number 1,122, press the division sign, and then enter 93 and 5/10, and I ended up with 12 inches. Now I know it's inches because those are the units. See, volume here is cubic inches. Area of the base is inches squared. Dividing inches squared into cubic inches gives me just inches, the height. So those are the types of problems you're going to see on tonight's assignment. Good luck.